Hello BookTube, this is part 16 of my 2022 library tour. I'm continuing on with the history section of my library. Yesterday I finished this bookcase here, and today I'm starting on this bookcase here, which will take me the rest of the week. There are 4 parts to this lower bookcase, and then, yeah. So anyway, BookTube, let's get going with the book. First of all is a book I picked up from a Friends of the Friends of the Library book sale a few years ago. This is a survey of historic costume by Phyllis Tortora and Keith Eubank. It's got a wide array of costumes, mostly in black and white. Yeah. Picked it up for reference when I for like how to design costumes for my fantasies and stuff. Although perhaps maybe a bit more useful for as a visual reference if you're doing it for like comics or something. But anyway, the next book is A Distant Mirror: The Calamitous 14th Century by Barbara W. Tuchman. I picked this up at the last Friends of the Library book sale I went to in 2019. Still a bit miffed that I didn't get to go in 2021, but anyway, hopefully 2022 I'll be back with a vengeance. But anyway, so A Distant Mirror. Next is Holy Madness: Romantics, Patriots, and Revolutionaries, 1776 to 1871 by Adam Zamoyski. I really want to get to this book at some point in the not too distant future. And next is The Fall of the Dynasties: The Collapse of the Old Order, 1905 to 1922 by Edmund Taylor. I'm thinking this is a look at the collapse of the various monarchies in the aftermath of World War I. Possibly also including the fall of the... let's see what the... yeah, it's about World War I. And the end of the... end of primarily the Romanovs, the Hohenzollerns, and the Habsburgs. So, picked it up from a Friends of the Library book sale ages ago. It is an ex-library copy from the Baker McLennan County Library. So, next is another book I picked up from the book sale. This is a History of Venice by John Julius Norwich. It's rather beaten up. There's some weird something or other here. I think it's wax or something. I wonder if I can actually, yeah, I can still open the book, so, yeah. Next up is a book that I read early last year and really enjoyed, and it just barely missed my top 10 list. This is Republic of Wrath: How American Politics Turned Tribal, from George Washington to Donald Trump by James A. Maroney. Really good book. Next is Byzantium: The Decline and Fall by John Julius Norwich. I'm thinking I picked this up from, yeah. This is the next library copy from Baker McLennan County Library, so I had to have picked this up from Friends of the Book Sale one year. Just to remember when. And I want to say this would be the 3rd volume of John Julius Norwich's Byzantine trilogy. Next is a book that I picked up from, I want to say I picked this up from the St. Edward's University when they would bring out some cards and discard books and stuff. because this is The Nile, the life story of a river by Emil Ludwig, which is on the back, because this is a very old book from, which I really want to get to at some point. So at least 1937. This is The Beauty and the Terror, the Italian Renaissance and the Rise of the West by Catherine Fletcher. This is also a really good book. Really enjoyed it. I want to say I picked it up from Powell's. I think The Beauty and the Terror might have been one of the first orders I had with Powell's. And next is Iron Curtain, The Crushing of Eastern Europe, 1944 to 1956 by Anne Applebaum. This is a really, really good book. Really enjoyed it. Picked that up from Powell's too. This is my second favorite book from 2020. This is Post-Wall, Post-Square, How Bush, Gorbachev, Kohl, and Dean Shaped the World After 1989 by Christina Spohr. This is a phenomenal book. Really should have gotten a lot more attention than it did. Next is the Franco-Prussian Award, the German conquest of France in 1870 to 1871 by Geoffrey Warrow. This is another really good book. I had this like in the early 2000s, shortly after it came out from the History Book Club. I was a member of the History Book Club when I was in college, and this was one of the books I picked up and really enjoyed it. And then I got rid of all of those books in a massive culling that I still deeply regret, because I'm still trying to recover some of those books that I regret having gotten rid of. And this was one of them, and I picked this up like a year or so ago. Next is Ancient Syria, A 3,000-Year History by Trevor Bryce. This is really good. Quite enjoyed it. Interlibrary loaned it repeatedly from my local library. My library doesn't have it, so they have to request it from another library, usually a university library. And I really wanted a copy of my own, so I picked this up. I'm not entirely sure who I picked it up from, though. This is another book that I had in the early 2000s through the History Book Club and got rid of and had wanted back ever since. This is The Punic Wars by Hadrian Goldsworthy. This is also quite good. Next is The Habsburg Empire, A New History by Peter M. Judson. Quite detailed. This is Empire of the Black Sea, The Rise and Fall of the Mithridatic World by Dwayne W. Roller. This is a really good brief history of Pontus and the Mithridates dynasty. Next is a book that has given me quite a bit of trouble the last 2 years. This is The Life and Death of Ancient Cities, A Natural History by Greg Wolfe. This is mostly about the Mediterranean littoral and the rise of urbanism in the Mediterranean, how urbanism doesn't really quite work or in the Mediterranean, and of how the history of the city from Greece and Rome to this. So the dissolution of a lot of these ancient cities. I was, it was better on my second reading than my first, but it's still rather disappointing. Next is a really good book. This is The Secret History of Wonder Woman by Jill Lepore. This is a biography of William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, as well as Marston's wife and lover. And while the primary focus is on Marston and his wife and lover, it's also a history of the feminist movement in this period too, which is really fascinating. Next is the Peloponnesian War by Donald Kagan. This was another one of the books I had from the History Book Club that I regretted getting rid of and picked back up. There was also a work that was I actually read selections of from my for my first college class. Sticking with ancient Greece, this is Philip and Alexander, Kings and Conquerors by Hadrian Goldsworthy. This is a really interesting biography of Alexander and definitely of Philip, who barely gets any biographical attention. So yeah, I have some quibbles with the book. Goldsworthy is mostly a Roman historian, so his perspective is a bit, at points I think, I'm not entirely sure I'm quite convinced by his perspective. But anyway. Next is King of the World, The Life of Louis XIV by Philip Mansell. This is a really good biography of Louis XIV. Next is yet another book I had from the History Book Club that I got rid of and regretted. Even though at the time I had it, I didn't actually like it. It took me checking the book out from my library to actually read it and actually enjoy it. So I'm weird. This is Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I actually heard Doris Kearns Goodwin speak at the Texas Book Festival in 2005. At least I think I did. I also think I saw David McCullough too. But anyway, next is Fifth Son, A New History of the Aztecs, by Camilla Townsend. This is a really interesting history of the Aztecs. Far too short, and spends perhaps maybe too much time on the Spanish conquest compared to before the Spanish conquest. But anyway, it's a pretty good book too. So that wraps up part 16 and history 4 of my 2022 library tour. I will be back tomorrow with part 17 and part 5 of history. So go ahead and wrap it up for now, and I'll be back here in a few minutes with book tag. So until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.